First, let's go to the mailbag. Yes, indeed. We received our very first email for legal notes. All right. It is from Larry in Avon, who sent in a question based on our conversation about living wills. He writes, isn't a living will the same as a DNR? If not, could you please explain the difference? Well, okay. I don't know what a DNR is, but I suppose he does, obviously. I would presume you two know it as well.
Yeah, we do. I was so excited to get the email. So
your first one, yeah.
Yeah. So a living will and a DNR are actually two separate documents. Living wills, we create. We draft them for people. And DNRs, it means do not resuscitate.
Oh.
That's what a DNR is. And doctors, you get them from your doctor. So that's the thing you can wear like as a bracelet. Some people have it as a chain. And what that means is that it's for your healthcare providers to know that you do not wish to have certain treatments. And so you're not to resuscitate them. A living will, however, I don't know if you remember, but a living will is you have to be on death's door. So you have to have no behavioral response. You have to be permanently unconscious. You have to be in a persistent vegetative state. The doctor has to say you're dying. And then we can choose to not hook you up to life support. So they're really, one's on one end of the spectrum and the other one is on the other.
That's when you would be dying just naturally, then, right? I don't want to say pulling the plug, but I mean,
if you assume that the plug is what keeps you going artificially, then yes, you are asking to be allowed to go naturally, right? So as opposed to being continued to be supported.
Gotcha.
But a DNR is a different document, and we do not draft them.
Gotcha. Okay, so do not resuscitate. Mm-hmm. That's a bracelet that...
You don't want to wear?
No. No, I mean, if I'm stranded on the side of the road, I've been hit by a car or whatever like that, and I'm, resuscitate. If you can save my life, how could there even be a question? No, I mean, save my life, my goodness. Mm-hmm. But I get if you're in a vegetative state. Yeah, I mean, there's pride associated with that. I don't want to be remembered for, I'm alive, my heart's beating, but I'm not alive, right?
Well, the DNR would... The setting being on the side of the road, that would not be typical. Typical would be if you were in a nursing home or you were in a hospital setting. So you're being cared for. The bracelet is to let your caregivers know that you have chosen to, if you do choose that, to have a DNR. So it's typically, as Marianne said, it's drafted by the physician, and it's a document that the physician actually presents to their patient. When the patient is, typically it would be someone who is elderly in a nursing home who is at the kind of later stages of their lives. And to resuscitate would just prolong maybe not a very high quality life that they're having already.
That makes sense.
So, so the interesting part about it is that, in that, let's say, nursing home setting, that not everybody has a DNR because it is a voluntary choice. And so, again, it's something that is discussed between the physician and their patient as to whether they want that. If that patient doesn't have the capacity, then somebody who does have the authority, such as their healthcare agent or a conservator of person, could be the person to make that determination as to whether or not that DNR should be in place.
Okay.
But once it is in place, then it alerts the nurses, other doctors, or EMS. When EMS comes, they're often looking either for a bracelet or in a nursing home, like on the back of the door, they'll have a packet of information that has the DNR, and it lets them know no chest compressions, no defibrillator, no. Don't take any efforts to resuscitate me if I have had a heart attack or I've passed away because I don't want to be resuscitated.
Interesting. So you don't need both.
Well, they do different things.
Or do you?
They do different things. So imagine you're talking about yourself. You're on that side of the road, right? Mm-hmm. Your family members have the living will, and they EMS, which are the emergency medical.
Yep.
Okay. They ambulance you to the hospital. Okay. And they have to save your life. they're starting to resuscitate you. They're starting to provide you with fluids. They're starting to provide you with nutrition, hydration. They give you a PEC tube, right, to keep you alive because they found you in your example on the side of the road. So severely injured, we'll say. Let's just add to that. So what happens is that your family member, your spouse or whatever, comes in with a living will. A doctor says, look, we're doing everything we possibly can for Gary, but he's not going to make it. Look at the brain waves. There's no brain waves here. And if you have the living will, which is different than the do not resuscitate, because if you had a DNR, they wouldn't be doing all those things to you.
I got you.
Okay?
Yep.
And the living will says, do we want to continue to keep Gary hooked up to that life support? And your wife goes, not yet. Not ready to let him go. No.
Well, no, but that's a
Right?
that's a tough decision. Yeah, you're right. I'll bet that happens all the time. Mm-hmm. You know, but yet you've got to follow what that person wanted, what that individual wanted.
Correct.
It's not so much what the spouse would like.
Right.
'Cause, to your example, I'm not ready to let him go or her go.
or do it now. No. I've been waiting for this day. No.
It's about time. Finally, the strychnine worked.
But either of those circumstances, that's right. I mean, obviously you're young. And we try to understand that because when we're young, we expect people to bounce back, right? Your body might be in a state of shock,
sure,
but we're going to wait a longer period of time before we pull any life support from you.
Well,
but if we're older, if you're in your 70s, 80s, let's say, or even older, just performing CPR could kill you, right? Breaking ribs could kill somebody who's older and whose bone structure is much more fragile. But for you, Gary, we would do CPR.
Well, thank you. You know, though, it's very interesting. I've actually had this conversation with people regarding how you age and your body becomes more brittle and, performing the Heimlich maneuver. I've always thought that, geez, there's this little old lady. I remember working, when I was in my early 20s, I worked at a psychiatric institution. I worked in nursing. As what I think they call him a resident counselor, but nowadays, but back in the 80s, it was a psychiatric technician, a psych tech is what the title was. And I worked on a unit, and I remember filling in the geriatric unit one day. And of course, I'm certified in CPR and life saving and Heimlich and all of that. So, and I remember seeing this very frail old. When I say old, she's got to be, must have been in her late 80s or early 90s even. And I thought to myself, I can't imagine ever doing a Heimlich if she was ever choking on something without breaking her bone. So that's so interesting. The interesting thing you said, when you said that, that's the first thing that came to my mind.